to do with our lives, Lori decided it was time for her to go to Hollywood, knowing she wanted to be a makeup artist to the stars. Well, not long after she had arrived, she did just that. Now, her list of clients include everyone who is anyone in Hollywood, from movie stars, Olympic athletes, famous politicians, very wealthy people, even the wife of the President of the United States. So that's quite an illustrious clientele. Well, Hollywood turned out to be one of those learning experiences, and she decided after 10 years it was time to take her hard work and come back home to Dallas and begin a new and even more rewarding life as the founder of Laura Lee Beauty, an aromatherapy, skincare, and makeup line based on beauty from the inside out. I am very excited to introduce you to my friend, Lori Schakosky. Doesn't she look fabulous? You know, when I first saw Lori, I made sure I didn't have any lipstick on my teeth. Because when you talk to a makeup artist, you kind of, she kind of looks at you, and I thought, was she looking at me for some reason? Welcome, Lori. Thank you very much. You have a wonderful career. I'm so excited that you're going to be able to share it with all these wonderful women.
Such an honor to be here today. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'd like to begin by just sharing with you how I came to be here in the first place. I had been working on a photo shoot with Jenny, and Jenny was having her Hollywood moment, and she came in. She had put herself into a contest to potentially win in a calendar, and she did. And she came in and she sat down in my chair and she asked me, she said, "Have you ever done makeup on any celebrities?" And I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "I lived in Hollywood for 10 years, and I've met a lot of really interesting people." And she said, "Well, you have to tell me some stories." So I sat down and I told her some stories, and she said, "Well, you really need to write a book about this." And I said, "Well, I am. It's a book called The Living Mirror." And she said, "Well, what's it about?" And I said, "Well, it's about all the people that I've met and what I've learned from them." And she said, "Wow, that sounds fascinating." And she said, "I'm a publisher." So it was like the stars aligned when I met Jenny. Like everything just started opening up. So I just want to thank Jenny. Thank you so much for inviting me. You're an amazing friend, a mentor, and a huge catalyst in my life. So thank you. Now, I'd like to shift gears a little bit to what it's like being in the space of a celebrity and working as a makeup artist. So just imagine for yourself, someone that really inspires you, like any celebrity or role model. And picture that person and all of the attributes that they represent. And now imagine that you get a phone call like 10, 15 minutes later, and a producer calls and says, "Are you available on Tuesday? We'd love for you to come and work on a shoot." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so great." So what are the things that pass through your mind? I mean, are you thinking about, what am I going to wear? What am I going to talk about? Like what is the experience of that moment of meeting somebody that you think is really fabulous? Okay, so now let's fast forward to the actual shoot. You're standing in front of this person that you really, really are inspired by. And you're seeing them 360 degrees around. It's like, wow, they don't look the same as they did, on the silver screen. They're coming in, they have like a t-shirt on, blue jeans, they have no makeup on, and you're like, wow. I mean, talk about a blank canvas. So they sit down in your chair, and you've got maybe 5 to, 30 minutes to spend with them, and you get to ask them anything that you want. Now this person's like this close to you, so it's like you get to have your own personal interview. So, what are some of the things that you would talk about? And, so just think about that. What is the experience that you think you're going to, walk away from with this person? See, I have this belief that everybody that shows up in our life shows up for a reason, to teach us something powerful about ourselves. And if we can actually get that reason, then we've gotten a whole entire lesson that we can then take our lives to the next level. So with that story in mind, I want you to just, as I tell some of the stories, I'm going to give you like 4 or 5 stories. I want you to imagine looking through my eyes as if you were experiencing this every single moment of these stories, and see what you would come out, what you would bring from this experience out into your life. The first story I'd like to share with you is when I got a phone call from a producer to do a national television show. The producer calls and says, "Hi, my name is Joan from Inside Edition. Are you available on Tuesday to do a shoot?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Awesome. Well, you're going to be doing makeup on Bill O'Reilly." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, Bill O'Reilly." Very, very exciting. And so fast forward to the day of the shoot, and it's a little windy outside. And I walk up, and the producer comes up to me, and he says, "Well, I guess you're working with the jerk today." I'm like, "Oh boy, what have I gotten myself into?" So I go to the set, and the wind's blowing. He said, "What are we going to do about Bill's hair?" I mean, we're talking beauty emergency right now. It's like a gust of wind, comes up. Well, as Bill comes in, he's riding in a limo. And I swear it was like a dark cloud follows him. Now, we all know what Texas weather is like. It's like it can change at any moment. So he comes in, he's introduced to me. He doesn't say, "Hi, I'm Bill." It's like, because I should already know who he is, right? It's like, so we go down to the makeup area, he sits down, and I am all excited inside. I'm thinking, what am I going to talk to him? Because everybody's going to ask me, what's it like? What's my experience going to be like? He's dead silent the whole time, staring at his script like this, and just looks up and says, "Don't get makeup on my neck." And I'm like, okay, so I'm just going with the flow here. And, so right before he goes out, I spray his hair down. I mean, he looks like Elvis by the time I'm done. He ends up going out on set. He puts the earpiece in his ear, and then he just starts screaming at the people in New York. They need to get their job done right. They need to, it's like nothing. He's cussing and screaming and carrying on. The producer says, "Bill, it's almost time. Are you ready to go?" All of a sudden, he pulls it completely together. And it's like, "Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. This is Inside Edition." It's just like a total morph. So we're shooting live, and guess what happens? The wind picks up. And I'm like, oh boy, here it comes. All of a sudden, this big clump of hair lifts. And here he is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's got a mohawk on live television. And I'm thinking, I'm never going to get called for this job again. I'm closing my eyes, But, the thing is that once I left that job, it was like I started thinking about it. In my mind, anybody who was rich and successful and had fortune and fame, they've got to be happy, right? All you have to do is look at People magazine. That tells everything. They have it all. But what I learned from Bill is that just because you have all those things doesn't necessarily make you a happy person. It's like if you start out happy, it just amplifies with things. So that was my experience with Bill. And the thing is that one thing that working on the shoot did was it actually inspired me to work in the world of television. It is so exciting. It is like the whole world is watching. And I'm like, I have to have more of this. So 6 months later, I decided to move to Hollywood. And, once I get all settled in and everything, I turn on the television. And it's the LA riots. And I'm thinking, welcome to Hollywood. It was just crazy. 2 seconds later, I get a phone call. And it's the producer from Inside Edition. And she's like, oh my gosh, I have been calling everybody trying to get a makeup artist and a crew, and nobody's available. And I'm thinking, you know. She's like, would you be willing to come and do the makeup on Bill? He seemed to like you. I'm like, wow. So then fast forward to the day of the shoot. And I've always had this journalistic spirit about me. I've always wanted to be in the heart of things, and I wanted to see what things were really like. Well, by the time that I actually got to the location, it was like a war zone. I mean, it was like 360 degrees of like fires everywhere, and driving really slow because people were putting the water, using water to put out the fires. And I drive through that whole area, and I get to the location, which is a parking lot, and I set all up, and Bill comes over and everything, and I do his makeup, and we're just about ready to shoot. Because, they have found the most dramatic location, of course, possible in Los Angeles. So at that point, this 300-pound guy comes over that lives next door and says, you guys need to get off my property. And we're like, I'm thinking, oh boy. I mean, not only am I not really feeling safe, there's a little bit of a false sense of security when you're working on, anything media related. I don't know why, but the camera seems to make everything better. Like people just don't mess with you. Not this case. So this guy comes over and he says, you guys need to get off my property. I'm going to give you 10 minutes. And then if you don't get off, I'm coming back with a shotgun. I'm like, this is my first job in Hollywood. Can you imagine? I mean, really. So he comes back 15 minutes later. We're still not gone. I mean, we're, he says, you really need to leave. And if you don't, there's going to be some problems. So he starts getting into it with the producer, and Bill walks in and he says, look, I'll handle this, And he goes, I'm Bill from Inside Edition, and he goes, I don't care who you are. And meanwhile, you guys, I'm keeping this PG, by the way. My mother's over there. So anyway, he gets mad, and Bill's like sensing that something is going to happen. And Bill goes, whatever you do, don't push over the camera. So what does he do? He pushes the camera over. The teleprompter lens falls and breaks and shatters and hits his leg.